there, Senators, and welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. I'm so excited to talk to you guys tonight. I have been waiting all day to do this. There's so much to get into, first of all, and I know we just want to get and go right to the end of the episode, but we kind of gotta work our way to uh, that. So we'll start at the beginning and then work our way towards the end. And that's probably where the stream, I mean, let's be honest, we'll probably get there pretty quick. So uh, just hold on tight and we'll go through the comments like we always do. Thank you all for being here, by the way. It's so fun to talk to you all, build an excellent community. These streams are brought to you by the senators of the channel. If you want to be a senator of the channel, you can go to the main channel page, hit the join button, look at all the perks and things that you can get by becoming a senator of the channel. You support me as a creator, and I couldn't be more grateful for all of you who are here. Let's see here. Senator Tony says, "Is that Anakin? Is Ahsoka dead and Anakin saved her? Where was Morai when she needed her? Is Anakin going to alter his shape to Vader and fight Ahsoka on the unrailed catwalk? All that and more." You got it, Tony. You see, I told you we'd go right to the end pretty quick here. We'll circle back and I might pull your comment up again. Looks like you had to take off to work though. Hope to see you back in the chat here pretty soon. Kermagin, we got Star Wars Kermagin in the chat. Good to see you, Kermagin. Senator Kathleen in the chat as well says, "I just heard a theory that Anakin might be the Mortis father now, and that sounds pretty good." Yeah, like I said, we'll jump to the end of the episode here pretty soon and get into all that speculation. Senator Kathleen says, "All I can say is Star Wars is back. And it is back, and I would argue almost better than ever. Obviously, was last night's episode the best piece of Star Wars content that we've ever gotten? Probably not the best, but it was pretty darn close. Pretty darn close." Kermage again says, "Hello, everyone." Good to see you, Kermagin. Thank you for being here. Let's just jump right into the beginning of the episode. And y'all know me. I always say I'm somewhere in between a normie and a super fan. I don't know all the lore. I don't do like breakdowns on the channel, like frame by frame. Oh, what did this character say? All this. I will say I've seen the episode 4 times already. I usually watch the episodes 2 or 3 times before like I do a stream, or within the first 24 hours of it dropping, I usually watch it probably 2 to 3 times. I have watched this one 4 times. Let me know in the chat how many times you will have watched this episode. I'm willing to bet at least everyone has seen it 2 times. And that ending scene, I think we've all seen it probably more than 4 times. So, uh, yeah, I'm not gonna go like deep into every scene. I kind of just want to go and just kind of talk about little bits and pieces of things that maybe we've speculated on past streams, and potentially some of the bigger important parts and things that I noticed. And of course, I'll bring up everyone's comments because this is Star Wars Democracy after all. So, Kerbage here says, "I still think Andor is the strongest series to this point, but this is a close second, and I'm liking it." Kerbage, that surprises me. From the little that we've interacted on these streams, I don't know if you've ever actually mentioned how you felt about Andor, but it kind of surprises me that you think Andor is good up until this point, because I know that you are not a sequel person. And so it surprised me that Andor. I would say that Ahsoka is definitely better than Andor at this point, but we can agree to disagree. This is Star Wars Democracy after all. So interesting take, but I appreciate you being honest for sure. Let's see here. Kathleen says it's up there with the last 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars. Yeah, I would say that's pretty hand in hand. I will say I like this episode. Like, okay, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. I just really like this episode, though. I really love the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars as well, but I really, really, really like this episode. So let's see here. Kathleen says, I've probably seen it about 6 times already and pick up something new every time. There is a lot to go through in this episode. So let's just start right off the bat. So, kind of like the first scene I want to talk about is that interaction between Sabine and Ahsoka. Uh, I believe it is the very first scene. I've seen it 4 times. You'd think I would know this, but I believe it's the very first scene that we see where they're out there talking. And Ahsoka's like, "Can I count on you?" Right? Like, "Can I count on you?" And at that point, we don't know. We're still kind of it's the history between Ahsoka and Sabine is kind of foggy. Skipping ahead, obviously later on we kind of get a glimpse as to potentially why um we eventually see why Sabine, like the relationship between Sabine and Ahsoka got rocky, and kind of like Sabine uh why Ahsoka may have left her. We'll get to that in a little bit. But um, I just thought it was really interesting the whole interaction about like, can I trust you? And at that point, the way that the scenes and the dialogue were building up, I was still under the impression and resting on the theory that Ahsoka and or Sabine were going to die. Like, and that's the scene I'm talking about, as well as the where Sabine's or Ahsoka's like, if we may have to destroy the map. And Sabine's like, it's not going to come to that. And I don't even know where I'm going with this. I guess what I'm saying is I'm already skipping ahead. I didn't see it coming to the enemy like kind of winning in this episode. I had a feeling that we would see them kind of be victorious. It was kind of already heading in that direction. But that's why I love Star Wars and like Revenge of the Sith and Empire Strikes Back, is because the good guys don't always win. And even though the Star Wars fandom won last night, the good guys were very much did not win this one. And looking back at it, obviously it's hinted at right from the beginning of that episode. But the way that the scene was building, I was not expecting Sabine to make a turn based off of that first scene dialogue. I was almost expecting someone to sacrifice themselves in order that the enemy may not be able to reach Thrawn. In fact, at the beginning of the episode, I was like, okay, there's a possibility here. I mean, we know we see Thrawn at some point on the ship just because we see it in the trailers. But at the beginning of the episode, I was kind of like, okay, maybe like they're not going to go to this new galaxy Peridia as early as we thought. I don't know. It's just something about how that scene was building up. And you all have to let me know what you thought of that interaction between Sabine and Ahsoka. The whole, oh, it's not going to come to the fact that we have to destroy the map, and Ahsoka's like, better we destroy the map than and better not. It would be better for Thrawn not to return as heir to the Empire than it would for us to go to find Ezra, bring him back, but also risk Thrawn coming back as well. Basically, we can't let our enemies win. And unfortunately, they have the map, they have the means of getting to Thrawn. Therefore, there's going to have to be some sacrifice. And from there, I'm usually pretty good at predicting things. And my prediction at that point was, oh, somebody's going to sacrifice themselves because I I thought like Ahsoka would sacrifice herself or Sabine would sacrifice herself. I was not expecting to see what we got though, and that's cool. I love it when Star Wars does that. Senator Kathleen says, "Man, are you excited?" And I couldn't wait to see how much. I am very excited. I gave it a 10 out of 10. If you follow me on Twitter, that's where I try to give my initial reactions as quickly as I can. Sometimes I forget because I get too excited, but I did post on Twitter that this was a 10 out of 10 episode for me. Y'all let me know out of 10 what you thought this episode was. Carmagen says, in retrospect, that scene was foreshadowing her failure. But first time watching it, I didn't realize it was a hint. Like I figured, I agree with you, Carbagen. Like as I was just saying, I definitely was not picking up what I thought was going to happen there. But I I was definitely not expecting to see what we saw. I was I suspected that it was some type of foreshadowing, but like I said, I was expecting it to be a foreshadowing of, oh, someone is going to sacrifice themselves, because we had talked about that, right? We talked about that yesterday before the episode about how there was my theory was, and like Josh from the Den of Nerds, his theory as well is like this could be a bloodbath. Everybody could die, and perhaps there's a time travel taking place with the World Between Worlds, which Kermigan, I believe it was you who's saying, "Oh, we won't see the World Between Worlds." Jokes on you. No, I'm just kidding. But I was expecting that we could see a lot of death, and of course Shin didn't die, so my theory was wrong there. Uh, and we figured Merrick would probably die. We'll get to that in a little bit, but nobody really died. I guess we could argue whether or not Ahsoka died or not. We'll get there in a little bit. But yeah, I guess I was just expecting like that scene, the foreshadowing I thought was going to take place did not take place, and I'm not mad about it. I'm happy with what we got. So couldn't be more happy with that. Let's see here. Senator Kathleen says, "I never thought Sabine would hold up her side to miss." Wait, let me back up. I never thought Sabine would hold up her side to miss the chance to get Ezra back. And after hearing that part of her family on Mandalore and Ahsoka not keeping a promise, that put the clincher on it. Yeah, so I mean, once we knew that, once we figured out that Sabine's family died on Mandalore, and we'll get to this in a little bit, but like to me, at first I was a little upset about Sabine's that decision. I'm like, that doesn't seem like Sabine, but like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit. Once you really put yourself in that character's shoes, kind of like what you're saying here, Kathleen, it totally makes sense from a character perspective. And so I'm not mad about it anymore. So Kathleen gave it a 10 out of 10. Curvagen gave it a 10 out of 10 as well. Says it was an amazing episode. Couldn't agree more. Kermigan says, I was definitely wrong about that. I was correct about Shin not dying, and give yourself props because you did think Ahsoka would die and we'd see the World Between Worlds. Yeah, so, and I know I talked about this before, Kermigan. I don't know how long you've been around on the channel, but for a while now, I was expecting that we wouldn't see the World Between Worlds. I remember way back when I first created the channel in December of 2022. It was before, but right around the time that the article and the rumors were coming out about the scene on Mustafar, which we're expecting next week, and how all of these scenes that are going to probably take place next episode were going to be inside the World Between Worlds. I was telling Journeyman, because at that time, and you can go back and watch these videos. They're some of the first videos I posted on the channel. They're not live streams. They're just regular, like kind of like podcast style videos. In one of those videos, I'm pretty sure I tell him like, no, this is not going to be the World Between Worlds. I believe it's going to be something more like we see in Rebels when they go to the Lothal Temple. Ahsoka does, and Kanan and Ezra. And Ahsoka has like the vision of Anakin, and Ezra has his vision. And Kanan has the vision of the Jedi Temple Guards. I thought it was going to be something more like that. I'm like, they're probably saying the World Between Worlds. Obviously, like the credibility of making Star Wars, who released all that stuff, or who that's at least who I follow, is pretty high. And I'm like, okay, like, sure, it could be the World Between Worlds, but maybe like they're just mistaking it for some like Force vision or some type of vision inside a Jedi Temple or just anywhere. I mean, like we talked about last night, even Luke has a vision on Dagobah. So that's what I was thinking. I was not completely sold on the fact that we were going to see the World Between Worlds. Uh, and Kermigan, like you, I was not sure that was going to happen. And like I said last night, I wasn't even sure we were going to hear Anakin, let alone see him. So the World Between Worlds was kind of a shock to me as well. And I have so many fun theories. I hope you guys stick around because this one could be a little bit longer. Journeyman should be joining us here pretty soon because I know he really loved the episode too. He's been dogging on Star Wars a lot lately, and I think that this episode kind of brought him back, which I hope is true for a lot of people who have been kind of upset with Star Wars lately. So stick around. He'll be joining us here pretty soon. And we'll get, I'm kind of saving all the speculation and theories for when he comes so we can kind of talk back and forth. But obviously, feel free to throw your theories in the chat as well. So, yeah, was wrong about Shin dying, but we did see the World Between Worlds and Ahsoka dying. But did she die? I don't know. We'll get into those theories and speculation a little bit later. Let's see here. Kathleen says, I never thought we'd see the World Between Worlds this soon. I figured the end of 5. Excited to see it, though. Love the World Between Worlds. Yeah, it looked pretty darn cool. The World Between Worlds did in live action. So let me go ahead and forgot to bring up my Ahsoka episode 4 reaction. If you can't tell, I'm reacting very positively. And just as I was talking about him, he pops in. So let me go ahead and bring him in. Journeyman, we are live.
We are live.
How's it go?
Pretty good. I got back from church, so.
Cool. Yeah, we just, I've been I knew this was going to happen. I told everybody, I was like, look, we're going to start from the beginning of the episode and try to work our way, obviously, up into the end of the episode. I'm like, it's probably going to happen sooner than we want. But I just got done talking about the scene where the first scene basically where Ahsoka and Sabine are talking, and she's like, "Can I count on
Mhm,
you? Like, if it comes to destroying the map, like the enemy has
mhm,
the map, they have the means of getting to where they need to go. Can I count on you?" I was taking that scene as like, okay, someone's going to like sacrifice themselves potentially, like in order to save the map, whether it be Sabine or Ezra. Like someone's gonna have to, or Ahsoka. Someone's gonna have to make a hard decision here and sacrifice themselves. I was not
mhm.
expecting it to be Sabine basically giving in. Were you expecting that?
No, I wasn't at all. I thought, like you, I thought there was going to be a self-sacrifice of some kind for the map of some kind, like something along that line. But
Well,
I
it's
was
like I was
surprised. I was surprised at like how the scene played out when we get all the information. But like, I was surprised how that turned out. I'm like, count on you for what? Like,
mhm,
she's like, I believe she says like before that, like they were talking, um, like about their feelings or about her Sabine's feelings for Ezra, and kind of like, can I count on you to make a hard decision, basically.
right.
And I wasn't expecting, oh, she's either gonna have to save Ahsoka or save the map, essentially.
Or destroy the map, or
Yeah,
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 like she was faced with destroying the map, or I mean, or going to save Ezra. And I definitely,
yeah.
I knew they were foreshadowing something, and I was completely wrong on what they were foreshadowing, which I'm okay with. I love being wrong, and quite frankly, I like what we got a lot better.
Mhm,
Uh, this comment here from Kermagin is kind of. I was actually talking about you right before you jumped on, and I was like, I'm saving all like the speculations about Anakin and stuff until you come on, just so, like we can get the back and forth. And I was like,
mhm.
I know you're excited about it, and uh, like you've kind of been dogging on Star Wars lately, I feel like, and I feel like this episode kind of won you over. So Kermagin here says, making the rounds of all the channels today. I'm sad to say that Kathleen Kennedy has so damaged the fandom that I don't think a large portion comes back until KK and Disney apologize and change. So,
Uh, Carmagen, I hate to break it to you, they're never going to apologize. They might change, but they're never going to apologize for what they did because they already made their decision. There's no way we can change it unless someone just overly buys Star Wars and says we're redoing this. But I don't think that's
mhm,
happening.
yeah,
And until Kathleen Kennedy's going to take the credit, but I was watching um, Theory last night after the episode, and he's like, "What is like the common denominators in all of them are Kathy and Dave, but Dave has been the one that makes the good episodes. Kathy's been the one that's like stayed there, and like what her projects are average Star Wars, and it's like that's not good enough. Like
mm,
Dave is the one that made Tales. Like why do we love Tales? It's because we get Dooku and Ahsoka, like, and they're really good stories. So
well, yeah. I mean, at this point, Dave, everything that Dave has been involved in, and I can say this only being 4 episodes into Ahsoka at this point, like he basically he gets it. He understands what fans want. but it's not just about the cameos. Like that
No,
episode
but
was so good, even without the cameo. That it's just what he's so good at as giving you a fantastic piece of Star Wars art, but then giving
mhm.
you like the cherry on top of like Anakin, because it's like I would have ate that, like whatever ice cream sundae, whatever you want to call it. I would have ate it, but you just give the cherry on the top with Anakin, and it's just like, okay, now it's perfect.
Well, what Dave does, and we talked about this privately for Tales, but what he does so well is he takes already established characters and expands on this thing. Plus, if he's going to do it, he's always said this. If he's going to bring someone in, or he said this for Ahsoka when they were making Mando. I wanted to bring Ahsoka in earlier, but there was no purpose in her doing so. There has to
Mm-hmm.
be a purpose for why we're bringing them in, and it has to be a good one. It's not just, hey, we're throwing in Anakin or Obi-Wan or name who whatever cameo you want at this point. Like he doesn't just throw in stuff. He has to be like, what is the good reason we are bringing this character from another thing into this? Like why now? You know?
You mean he
Eh,
plans it, basically.
Yes.
That's most of the battle right there.
Yeah.
Kathleen says Dave's playing the long game. It makes you wonder if Ezra made his way back into the world between worlds somewhere in time and or space. Um, we'll get into that speculation here. We'll get into all the world between worlds speculation here in a little bit. Um, so I talked about that scene with Ahsoka and Sabine. Um, I'll get to this comment here in a second, Kathleen.
Yeah.
Let's kind of dive into the. I think we can kind of skip ahead just a little bit, unless I'm missing anything that you want to touch base on. But the battle between Merrick and Ahsoka, and then Shin and Sabine. How do you feel with the reveal of Merrick being literally some type of probably Night Sister magic? I'm still not really sure we've got anything confirmed, but he was
No,
indeed
yeah.
Smoke, or she, or whatever.
Yeah. That thing was smoke.
That thing was
Um
Smoke.
I mean it was literally nothing and then it yeah, well whatever. I thought the battles were still cool. Like no matter
Hmm.
what Merrick was, like it was cool to know um that it was really like both of the battles were really good. It showed I got like a Darth Maul Obi-Wan vibe during that. And a lot of this episode was that. Like it was the art style or movie style that George and Dave really like is the Kurosawa
Hmm.
movie style esque, and I've never
Samurai.
watched
Hmm.
yeah, and I've never watched Kurosawa or whatever. But I've maybe seen clips of it or whatever. But I really like that style. Like one thing, and I said to you this to you when we were watching it, but I'm still having to adjust myself to live action again. And I know
Hmm.
that sounds weird, but we've watched Clone Wars and Rebels for so long now because that's what we were trying to get ready for. And,
Hmm.
it's really fun action and all that. But I'm starting to have to get back into the live action stuff. And they did really well with it. Like, was it, what is it not as in, I guess, cool, I guess, is Clone Wars or animation style action? No, but it works for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I got vibes. I could be the only one who thinks this, but the choreography, or and maybe not so much the choreography, but the camera angles and kind of the style that we were going for, particularly with the Merrick Ahsoka fight,
Yes.
kind of like the movements and, like I said, the camera angles. It kept giving me Mace Windu and Palpatine vibes of their fight for some reason. It was like the very like kind of like the shots were very like kind of close to them, and just like I don't
Yeah.
know, the style of it. I could be the only one who was getting those vibes. Not saying it was like a one for one take, but
Yeah.
it was kind of like it reminded me of that just a little bit.
And
Um,
then this Shin and Sabine fight I really enjoyed because it still shows Sabine gaining a little bit more knowledge, trying to she held her own this time, of course, but she still pretty much lost the fight, which once again, Dave being a master of like building up Ahsoka's character from the Clone Wars, like he knows how to build characters that like
Mhm.
even though Sabine's a very skilled fighter and we've seen her fight in Rebels, like she's a capable fighter, but
Mhm.
she's still even with Kanan training with the for the sword or with the dark saber and all that, like she still has a ways to go in understanding how to sword essentially sword fight. That's
Right.
what it is. Like so once again, Dave just showing us that she still has a ways to learn here. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Editor Kathleen says it looked like Night Sister magic smoke to me. Yeah, it had a little bit of a green tint to it for sure.
which
Um,
also I think the other thing it could be in it he could be made out of smoke, but I believe Savage or Press was kind of built up bigger with the magic.
mhm.
And then also if in Jedi Fallen Order, the first game, uh, I believe the Night Sisters and all that is kind of like smoky stuff as well. So the
Right.
brothers or whatever. So essentially, he probably was a person, but when he gets slashed, he goes back to the smoke, essentially. So we never see like probably a true face reveal or anything. It's
Right.
just when he gets slashed, he goes back to that form or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think it was like a form of Night Sister magic for sure. Curbigen, he says the smoke thing was bad. The one mistake of the episode. I get Night Sister magic can resurrect the dead, but this was a big letdown. I think the way that they focused on him. Yeah, I think there's a lot of attention on Merrick for him to end up being basically nobody. But I think the question is, and I'll get to Kathleen's comment here pretty soon because I see she posted something. But I mean, will we see Merrick again? Like, was that the end of the Inquisitor as we know him or her? Uh, or do we see Merrick again?
I'm, I think he's dead at this point. I mean, the way that it's shot, you don't. I mean, once again, it's Night Sister magic. Anything can happen at this point, but the way that they shot it makes it seem like that's the final blow.
Yeah.
Which I think the reason this is just my speculation, but I think the reason Dave focused so much on this character is
Hmm.
because he has two other characters he has to build up, Balin and Shin, to
Hmm.
try and build up their characters. But also, it's just overshadowing what we got this episode. So, like the final ending of it, like it may seem like a disappointment, but I think Dave was intentional about this and like, yeah, we're gonna reveal this now, but then it makes up for what we got later. So
Hmm.
it's like, yes, it's a disappointment, but what we got later overshadows everything that
Yeah.
we got.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could see him again or a variation of the same thing. Kind of like what Kathleen is saying here. Do you think Thrawn's army is going to be consisting of Night Sister army or perhaps magic? Yes, I do. That's at least what the rumor has been. It's like it's reforged and rebuilt stormtroopers. And I think that if anything, kind of like what you were just saying, like if you think about what Merrick's role was for the show, it could be to foreshadow and show the audience like, hey, this army, like we saw a literal person who could, I don't know, I don't think we see Merrick wield the force at all. Now we do because his lightsaber comes flying back to him, so I guess you could say.
Mhm.
But I guess I so the if a literal force wielder who can fight with a lightsaber is a thing with Night Sister magic, it's not unheard of or insane to
No,
think that we could get a whole army of stormtroopers. So that could literally be the reason why we see Merrick uh, in the show.
I know the Grisk was the thing that everyone wanted Thrawn to have, like army wise or whatever.
Hmm.
I think it would be cool if it was both Night Sister and that. type of army. I think that'd
Yeah.
be really cool.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
definitely.
why not at this point? Yeah, do it.
No, I don't know. The Grisk fights against Thrawn though, so I don't know if that would be
Oh,
uh if I don't know if that would be the case. But yeah, it's I think the undead army of stormtroopers is definitely a thing and will definitely happen. Kathleen here says, I think Merrick is going to show back up again. They've hyped him up way too much. I could see it happening, but like I said, Kathleen, I think like your last comment, I think his role could be primarily to show the audience that a army of reforged and revived undead stormtroopers is not out of the question. So Kermagin says, Sabine fighting with Ahsoka was cool. I will be very frustrated if she winds up using the Force. She's actually in the sweet spot. This story is taking place over days, no time to improve that much. Yes, it's a good point about how the the duration of time that has gone by as the episodes is like Sabine has not had time to learn enough. She's not had the time to learn at this point enough about the Force to be able to wield it. And like you say, Kermagin, she's actually in the sweet spot. It's like she's at the place where we know that I think it's confirmed at this point that everybody can use the Force. But at this
hmm
point, Sabine does not have the ability to wield it like someone like Shinhati does, for sure.
yeah.
So Kerbagin says, I think we're done with Merrick. He's up in smoke, as you said. Yeah, I don't see Merrick coming back, but like we've been saying, a variation of him could come back. So,
You want
so
to
go
you want
ahead.
to continue with the episode, getting
Yeah,
deeper into it?
yeah. So, I mean, skipping ahead to the Balin and Ahsoka interaction, Anakin spoke highly of you, and he's like, everyone knew. What did he say? Everyone knew
I
about
and
Anakin and what he became, or
everyone,
few
yeah,
would know what he became, or
what he
something.
became, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic dialogue. Like,
Which is sad since he has sadly passed away. That's what I saw something on Theory's post. He posted a post that someone said about Ray, and it's like sadly that he's passed now because the dialogue was on point for his. He acted his butt off
yeah,
for this role, and it's
vi-
like
mhm.
once again Dave writing, but his acting, like him knowing how to say those things, really works. And his character's one of intrigue because even even Ahsoka asked the question like, "Funny, Anakin never said anything about you." Like
Yeah. He
we
never
still
mentioned you.
don't. Yeah, he never
Hmm.
mentioned you, so it's like clearly he was a Jedi, but like at what point did you meet him, or like we need more answers to
Hmm.
this.
Yeah, and I mean, and he says it too. Like everyone knew who Anakin was, so it's possible Anakin never met Balin specifically because he's literally saying
Yeah,
everyone knew who he was. Um, but there is something to be said too. Is like Anakin spoke highly of you. Like, was Anakin just? I mean, I guess rumors can spread about Anakin Skywalker's Padawan as Ahsoka, but yeah, like, was he speaking directly to Balin, or was Balin just hearing,
he could.
off to the side?
Anakin also could have just been in the Clone Wars somewhere for an episode we didn't see or whatever. They could just make it say it or
Yeah,
whatever. But like
yeah,
he could be in a room full of people and being like, my Padawan is really great. Like if you need her for anything, like just ask, and we'll be there. All that. Like he could have just been speaking openly about her and he was in the room.
yeah. Well, and he Balin is powerful too. He reminds me a lot of Dooku. Like even just his interactions is like he doesn't want to fight Ahsoka. Like we've known this. Like the hints have been dropped a lot in the episodes of like he doesn't want to have to do what he's doing. And it kind of just reminds me of the interaction between Dooku and Obi-Wan. It is different, but like when Obi-Wan is in custody and Dooku's like talking to him and like trying to get him to join, he's like, "What if I told you that the Sith Lord was like telling him all these things?" It's like Dooku doesn't he gives you that opportunity to like see his point of view, kind of. And if you don't join him, then he will combat, like fight you.
It his character reminds me of Dooku a lot. I specifically think of um, Tails when he's speaking because he's like, um, sorry, who's the Night Sister again? What's her name?
Morgan Elsbeth.
Yeah, Morgan says like
Mhm.
have some faith, and he's like, I've lost faith. I've lost that a long time
Yeah,
ago,
very
or hope, or
Dooku-ish
yeah, like,
faith.
and I think of Tails when he's um, the Yaddle fight and
Mm-hmm.
the when he's uh, at the tree when
Mm-hmm.
Qui-Gon dies. Like he's like, I'm basically talking like I did everything for Qui-Gon and now look what's happened. Like I didn't want this to happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's he was so he was still walking the fine line of doing Sith and Jedi, but he was still a Jedi at that point. Like
Well, and it's
and
really great to see like kind of what his motivations are. Like
yeah,
obviously he doesn't want to work for Thrawn specifically. He's using Thrawn as a means of basically doing the dirty work for him so that he can, I mean, he says it, one must destroy in order to create. Well, okay, we understand his motivations for needing Thrawn now, but we
hmm
still, it's a little unclear on like what is his end goal? Like what is he trying to accomplish?
yeah. Well, what is
And
he specifically trying to accomplish? Yeah,
yeah, and so but it was nice to get a little bit more
but
information.
it feels like Anakin at the same time.
Yeah. So, are you back now?
Yep, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay.
It feels like Anakin a little bit because remember in Revenge, like he was talking to Padme, like you know, saying like we can take over as my empire specifically, and like I think that's what he's trying to do with Thrawn, as like Anakin did with the trying to trying to do with the empire is throw the emperor off so he can rule, and I think that's kind of his end goal. The Jedi Order's over. There's nothing left. The only thing that you can do is take over the power now. At this
Hmm.
point,
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun to see, hopefully learn more about his motivations and things like that. Kermagin here says, "What an incredible speech! It's so sad that Ray didn't live to see how well received his role is. He's such a great actor. Yeah, it is. It's very sad, and he sells that character so well. Um, yeah,
it's
it's
it's so
sad.
sad.
It's like, and every time I see him on screen too, it's like it just makes you sad, like because
Yeah.
you and it's hard to pinpoint exactly why, but it's like I do like his character is so loved, and you just want him to be able to feel that love. So it is
hmm
sad. Uh, Kathleen says, I think Sabine will have some force powers, but I think her Mandalorian fighting skills will still be her main fallback. Um, yeah, I would agree with that probably.
I mean, we saw that she tried to force push her
Yeah,
Shin.
but I think that was kind of like a diversion. I don't think she was actually trying to use the force. I think that was her a bit of a tactic. That's just my opinion, though.
I think she was trying to use it, and then she had that hand already up there, and she's like, "Well, I have this rocket launcher or wrist launcher thing." So
Yeah, yeah. Kermagin says, what I did not expect from Balin was him really trying not to fight, but he really doesn't have a high opinion of Anakin or Ahsoka's style of handling things, at least it seemed from his comments. Yes, he definitely, at first in the trailers, I thought, okay, maybe they were friends at one point. Like maybe like when he says Anakin spoke highly of you, it seemed like they were friends. And that may be true, but as Kermit is saying here, he does not hold Anakin in a high regard. And I really think like I think he despises Anakin.
I mean,
Like,
he's the reason the order fell.
yes. And I think that Balin, as we've already talked about, is kind of a mirror of Dooku, and like I think he probably stuck with the Jedi until the end of the Jedi Order 66. But I think he was seeing the hints and the of what the Jedi were becoming, and like he knows like that Anakin's fall was due to the Jedi, but still blames Anakin because
Yes.
he's like, your legacy, like your masters, is one of death and destruction. I think he says death and destruction. I know he says destruction, but it's like he blames Anakin, but he also blames the Jedi. And Kermagin also says here, I think he wants to bring the Jedi back in some way, a version of the Order. I think he's wanting to create some type of order. However, Kermagin, I agree with you. I think that that might be what he's trying to do. I'm not entirely sure why he would need Thrawn to come back, though. Like, I don't know why he would need Thrawn to come in and destroy everything for him to rebuild a Jedi Order, because the New Republic is obviously not posing any kind of threat to him at this point. So it's not
Yeah.
like he needs to necessarily come in and wipe out the New Republic. So I agree with you. I do think that that is something that he's trying to do, but I don't. It doesn't seem like that's his end goal. Otherwise, I don't think he would need Thrawn. But
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. So, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. Great acting. He does remind me of Dooku. Also, there was a poll taken on another site if the Balin character should be replaced instead of killed off later. I struggle with these assessments. Is
It
it bad
depends
to
on
say
what the
I'm kind of
family.
indifferent?
I mean,
Like,
I am indifferent, but the I think if the family wants the character to continue, then you recast. If not, and he was gonna die anyway in the story, then you need to just leave him be his character.
yeah.
Like if the character was supposed to continue on, I think you try and find a way to redo it or bring in someone else that kind of replaces that role essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure how, but somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But if but otherwise I think you just kind of need to, let
To
his
move
character
on.
be his character. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like, to your point, and not to like diminish his death, but it's like at this point really need to be serving the character, serving the story. So whatever we need to do to serve the story and have it make sense is kind of like I think what we should be doing. Like regardless of
And
Ray's performance and how much we love him as an actor, we just need to be looking at the character and like what the character's role is. And I think that Dave
and
will absolutely do that.
and
So
and just to be clear, I've thought about this. I know that's a hard question to ask, what we just talked about, but I I think I thought this for T'Challa for in Marvel. Like it was sad to see Chadwick die, like in real life, but like I sort of wanted his character to continue. Like I wanted that character to live on,
yeah,
as sad as that is, like and that will always be his character, no doubt
yeah,
about it. Like that is Chadwick Boseman's thing, but like I feel like we could have done this. The story could have been better for Wakanda Forever
yeah.
had it continue.
Yeah. Courage in here says, and Balin thinks Anakin and Ahsoka only know one way to handle things: fighting. I may have to rewatch the episode Courage in. I didn't get that. I more so got not necessarily that they handled things the same way, Anakin and Ahsoka. It's that Anakin's legacy was one of death and destruction, obviously becoming Vader.
Well, I think he's talking about the part where Ahsoka shows up. They talk for a little bit, and then she draws her saber first, and he says like
Yeah, but I
so
don't.
predictable.
he says how inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, possibly, but I think like more so. I think what he's saying is like the means to the goals that they're achieving are basically death and destruction. Like from Ahsoka's point of view, she's trying to prevent a war.
a bigger threat than what we uh, what we just got through doing the Clone Wars. Like we want to start another war.
Yes. But it's like, what does he mean when he says your legacy, like your master's, is one of? I think he says death and destruction. Well,
I think he does too.
what death and destruction is Ahsoka causing by combating him as Balin?
I think he's he's trying to manipulate her too, but he's kind of rightly so saying like you walked away from the order. You were sort of responsible for Anakin's turn. You are why the Jedi Order no longer exists, basically. Like your legacy is one of death and destruction. That is your legacy. Like you could served rightly by your master, Anakin, and you you followed him all the way through until you left. But you still have that legacy of because remember she could have left entirely and stayed out of the whole ordeal of the order. We could have never seen her again after season 5 or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she decides to come back to help the Jedi Order essentially as a citizen and go get Maul.
Yeah, but I think I agree. I think, and to your point, I think it would be more so like her assisting with a rebellion and things like there was obviously a lot of death in the Galactic Civil War between the rebels and the Empire. So
Yeah,
that's probably what he's talking about. But anyway, um, Senator Kathleen says maybe Balin escaped from the temple and that is what put him over the edge, or do you think he just left? Or do you think he left just before the fall? I think he was there all the way until this is just my theory speculation. I think he was there all the way until Order 66, and he probably escaped similar to like how we see Kanan and Jarrus escape in the Bad Batch, and instead of taking the route that we see Kanan take, which is one of like still calls himself a Jedi, still believes in the Jedi. I think having seen the hints that the Jedi were dropping and catching on to the fact that like he lost faith in the Jedi, whereas Kanan
yeah,
did not lose faith in the Jedi, obviously. And so
yeah.
that's the difference. I think their fate and their destiny were kind of the same. It's just one lost faith in what the Jedi stood for, and the other one was still believed in it. So Curmudgeon says, I don't believe in recasting, but I do believe in deepfake resurrection. I liked what they did with Tarkin, Leia, and Luke. Yeah, I just think it's expensive. And again, it would all come down to whether or not it serves the
The
character
thing, the character and the family.
and the
It's what,
story.
yeah,
Yeah. I think Balin was trying to convince Ahsoka of something and she didn't care. She drew her saber and attacked. Yes, obviously she was ready to put an end and make sure that the enemy was not able to retrieve Thrawn and start another war. That is why she attacked. That was her motivation. And Balin's motivation seems to be he needs Thrawn to come back so that Thrawn can destroy everything and then he can build something. We don't know.
you're having two different opposing views here.
Right.
Ahsoka, we talked about this for the Ahsoka and Sabine talk in the beginning of the episode. Like, what are we willing to do here? Like, we have a hard decision that we have to make, and it's probably already made for us. You know, that whole conversation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what her thing is. Is like, I don't care what it takes. I'm not letting Thrawn return and start another war. That's
Mm-hmm.
Ahsoka's motivation. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So, start going back a little bit to Kathleen's comment here. We'll start jumping into the
yeah.
world between worlds side of things. It
Hmm.
says, "What are your theories on the map? On the map burned onto Ahsoka's hand." So, I guess I wasn't sure that there was a I didn't know there was a theory about the map being burned onto her hand, but I don't. I know people are talking about why did it burn Ahsoka and it didn't burn Balin or Sabine. Well, it didn't burn Ahsoka or Sabine when they held it the first time, and it was, I guess, didn't Sabine activate it in the radio tower on Lothal? I'm pretty sure she activates it. It didn't
Yeah.
seem to burn her that time, but I mean, also it was literally just underneath it was on top of a flame that Elsbeth used to ignite it, and I think that's it. It's just hot. Like I don't know why people are
Yeah.
dwelling so much on why it was burned. I don't have any theories about it specifically. I don't know if you do or not.
I think if it's burned, it's Balin says like now no one shall read the map. That's probably the only way that they have the map towards. I mean, just my theory. That's the only way they have the map to even reach Ezra. If or or if Ezra's coming with Thrawn somehow and on the way back, and we go to this new place, and Thrawn comes back and Ezra's with him. Like I don't know, but like
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything to it being burned on the hand.
I do
Kathleen says
think.
here,
Sorry, I do think that the theory I have about the burning of her hand though is I think that's when the world between world opens because we hear
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, we'll get into that in just a second.
Yeah, sorry.
Kathleen says Ahsoka and Anakin sort of didn't follow the Jedi law's path a lot in their fighting of the war. Too unconventional, unaggressive. So I think that's what Balin meant. Yeah, I mean, their approach to things was obviously different from the Jedi. So probably that's probably what he was referring to. Curvagen says if it burned on her hand, then that's a serious homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yeah. I definitely don't think that it was burned directly into her hand. But as you were saying, Journeyman, what was your theory regarding grabbing the map?
I think that grabbing the map, if you, I think that's when the world between worlds opens, or at least it starts to open. So my theory on this is if you go back and watch a world between worlds, you hear kind of a crackling when Ezra comes through the portal the first time. You hear the crackling of like lightning and thunder when the Emperor shows up. You also hear the crackling and lightning. I know that's of the Sith Temple. Uh, I know that's a different crackling, but I I think if you go back and watch that, there's clear indication of like that's a start of like a portal opening,
Mm-hmm.
at least in my mind. So I think her grabbing it gave her, or at least Anakin force something like the will of the force there was enacted of like opening the world between worlds. That's at least my theory
Yeah,
on her grabbing it.
Curvagen liked your theory. That's an interesting theory about the crackling signaling something. I didn't notice it either. And when you pointed out to me, I definitely think you're on to something because it is almost a one for one, especially when you hear Palpatine, like right before, like Ahsoka's like, when she's with Ezra in the World Between Worlds, she's like, we need to leave or something like that. And you hear that lightning like crackle, like boom, and the lightning crackles. And that's when things get a
You
little
hear,
dicey with Palpatine. And
mm-hmm,
so like a portal was opening. It's almost the same exact sound you hear when she grabs the map. And it's not when she grabs the map. It's, I think, when she releases the map and
yeah,
you hear the lightning crackle. It's almost the same exact sound. And I was thinking about that theory too. And I don't want to say it like involves electricity as well, even though it's like the lightning and the crackling. Like
yeah,
obviously there's something to electricity, but um I need to go back and go and listen to that whole episode again, probably to see if you hear that lightning crackle at any other time in the World Between Worlds episode of Rebels, but also go back to Twilight of the Apprentice, because as we know, and I don't remember lightning crackling specifically, but on the temple, the whole temple, the Sith temple, the when it's being activated, there's like the purple lightning going on. So I'm almost wondering if it's kind of hidden with the sound effects in that lightning. And also, there's a lot of theories. I made a video on it recently and mentioned this, but a lot of people say, and I believe that this is true somewhere in canon, that Exegol and the Rise of Skywalker is a place where the barrier between life and death, and like essentially the world between worlds and like the netherworld of the Force, is very slim, and that's
Interesting.
why Rey is able to connect with the Jedi, because she looks up in the sky as she's having that near-death experience, and it goes
Oh,
to stars. And again, the whole planet on Exegol is lightning and just lightning crackling the whole time. So
well, did you see that video that I sent you on Instagram?
possibly,
So it's a video of Dave describing why he made a world between worlds, and
yes.
I can post it in the Discord if you want me
Hmm.
to. But and I probably will. But it describes Dave why he made the world between worlds, and he says, "I wanted to create this place where at any point in time these characters can not move around, I guess, but there's just one central hub where all this goes down essentially. Like
Hmm.
you can go in and look at any specific time and all that, and just to have like a place to connect. And that's another one of the theories is like, is this where we get Force Ghosts from and all this? And he kind of explains that. He's like, the first time Ezra goes into a world between worlds, kind of what you're describing with Ray, that we
Hmm.
see stars, that's essentially what Ezra saw when he's getting the kyber crystal. Remember, he's there's a circle
Hmm.
in the bottom, and then it's just stars, and the kyber crystals coming for
Hmm.
him so he can
Hmm.
grab it. That was a world between worlds. We just didn't know it yet. So
Hmm.
like he was already dropping hints like this is a place. And then also when he met Yoda and they were having that discussion, that was a world between worlds.
Hmm.
So then once he gets into a world between worlds, it looks completely kind of not new, but it looks different, but it's a place he has sort of been before.
Right.
So he looks confused because he's like, I don't know what this place is, but he understands it more and more. Not saying he understands it fully, but he understands it a little more of being like, where am I? I know he
Hmm.
still asks the questions a lot, but he has a better understanding of possibly where he's at.
Yeah. So getting into it, that then, if your theory holds, and I think there is some credibility to your theory, is at that point a portal or opening begins to open essentially on that planet. Do you think then that when Ahsoka is yeeted off the cliff, do you think Anakin then goes and grabs her through a portal like Ezra does and saves her that way?
Mm,
Or does she
yes,
literally die and end up in the world between worlds?
I don't
Because
think it's a
it's really
say. I
either
don't.
or,
It's either or. I think
or
what
that's
they're
all
going.
inside her, or she survives the fall and it's just all inside her head or something like that. I don't know.
I mean, essentially, that's kind of what Ezra has been doing. Like he's been alive this whole time, and yet he's been inside the world between worlds. Like and it's kind of quote unquote been all in his head essentially until you get to the actual episode of A World Between Worlds when he's actually in it, you know?
Hmm.
So it's kind of been in his head the whole time. So you could say that she's either two theories I think are true. I think either she fell and she's surviving and this is all in her head and she's just thinking of this. And she's in a world between worlds, but like she's not. At the same time, I think she probably actually did die and sh like she's just now getting there. And At least that's my theory, because
So you don't think Anakin saves her through a portal? Because that would, not to blow your theory up, but if a portal was opening with
yeah,
the sound of the lightning, it would
yeah,
almost seem as like it would need to be used rather than just saying, "Oh, she dies,"
and
and
then a portal opens. Yeah,
and
yeah.
then she just gets transported there.
I think so. I think that's what probably we're gonna find out next episode, which I hope they explain that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hope they do what a world in Rebels, like, Ezra being like, "I pulled you through," and Anakin being like, "I saved you."
So, and then to go off of that, if Anakin does save her, or really just in general, why is
hmm
Anakin there? Because the issue, okay, I shouldn't say an issue. I'm really glad to see Hayden. I don't take issue
Oh
with it
yeah,
at
no,
all. But
no.
the question I have is, if this is truly the world between worlds, and let's say that this is where Jedi who are Force ghosts go, then,
It's not Force Ghost. It's a place in time where all of it connects. So
and I understand that, but I'm saying, I guess what I'm asking is this Anakin alive or dead?
uh,
Because the problem I'm running into is this Anakin looks nothing like the Anakin that we see at the end of Return of the Jedi. He has the black robes on, the Jedi robes on, instead of the white Jedi robes, number one. He has a mechanical hand, which, as many have pointed out, he wouldn't necessarily have a mechanical hand
hmm
if he was dead, you would think.
hmm
He has a lightsaber. Is this Anakin? Some are saying this Anakin is because of the Vader theme. I've seen this theory on Twitter that this Anakin is a Revenge of the Sith Anakin who has turned into Vader and has
Yep.
somehow managed to fall into the world between worlds.
And if that's the case, what would that mean though? Would that is that ruining 3 though?
I don't know. I don't know. That's what some people are saying. It's like this Anakin, and it's like we're about to see a duel because this Anakin is actually Vader, and has somehow managed to find his way into the world between worlds. Because this Anakin does not like. I don't think Dave, like, obviously Dave is smart. He's the visuals we're getting is like, and even with the Vader theme, it's like it's there to cause the speculation, but it's like, is it merely there just to hype everybody up, or like is it there for a reason? And it's like, and I've also seen this going around too. It's like, okay, like, yes, we got the world between worlds, or at least we're pretty sure this is the world between worlds. And I think every Star Wars fan can safely say that the only person who knows how the world between worlds works is Dave Filoni.
Yes.
But I'm like, he
I'm
has
kind of
his
coming up
lightsaber.
with the theory now for well, it could be no, because she dies after. She dies right when he becomes Vader. So that wouldn't make sense.
Uh,
My
Kerbajin had
theory
to Kerbajin had to leave real going to work. I appreciate you, Kerbajin. Yeah, can't wait to hear your thoughts on the replay.
yep.
Senator Kathleen says, I think Anakin pulled Ahsoka through a portal. I don't know. It's definitely a plausible theory. We got Senator Tony in the chat. Kermagin says, at Star Wars Kermagin, and I'm just getting up. And then he says, why did Anakin say, I didn't expect you so early? That is the line that has me questioning everything, Tony. That is the line that keeps blowing up every theory, because he was obviously expecting Ahsoka.
But he wasn't expecting her now.
Yeah. So that makes me think it's not Revenge of the Sith Anakin, because it wouldn't make sense for Revenge of the Sith Anakin to expect Ahsoka. That line specifically makes me think that this is a dead Anakin in the world between worlds, who has passed from the living force into the cosmic force, and was waiting for his Jedi Padawan to die
Yeah.
and to meet up with him in the world between worlds. And he's like, "Oh, didn't expect like I knew you were gonna die eventually, but I didn't know you were
I
gonna
didn't.
die this quickly." But what's
That's
your
what I
theory?
think.
Is that your
That's what I
theory?
think. But so my theory before, and I know it doesn't make sense, but the thing I thought of was if this was actual Vader in like full suit Vader,
Mm-hmm.
I could see this being him going back and um, trying to save Padme essentially
Mm-hmm.
through a world between because in the comics he does go back and try and save Padme in that like weird mysterious world,
Yeah.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I thought. That's what I was literally just thinking, but I'm like that doesn't make sense if he's in Revenge of the Sith attire because essentially he dies or he becomes Vader when she dies at the same time. So I mean, I guess he could, but I that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I think we will get answers. I think for now it's just going to be purely speculation. I
Yeah,
do think at some in some capacity this is a dead Anakin. Um, and we have to come to the realization that we don't know everything about the world between worlds. We've
yeah,
only really seen it in full blown action, like kind of understand some of the concepts in one episode.
yep.
And what we know about it is seemingly like it's a time travel device, which we know it's not time travel. It just seems like that's what it's for.
It seems like it's time travel, but it's not time
But it
travel.
and that's not what it's for. Dave
Yeah,
Filoni has said it's for well, in one interview he says it's all about knowledge and obtaining knowledge. And then practically speaking, he uses it like in your video you're talking about to link all of Star Wars together. So it's like
yeah,
from a character's perspective, it's about them getting the knowledge that they need to come to a realization about something. And for the fans, so to speak, it's to bridge all of Star Wars together.
yep,
So um, and like where I was going with that is like we see it as a oh we can pull characters out and like from time and like change how their destiny was supposed to be shaped. But as we know from the rumors and everything, like it's also about learning about destiny and one way or another we are going to see Ahsoka see herself on Mustafar fighting Anakin, which we know is not a scene that took place. So there are aspects about the world between worlds that we are just going to have to say we do not know how it works yet. But I do think that there is something to like who is Anakin? Well, we know who
well,
Anakin is, but
yeah.
why is Anakin? Let me do you one better. How is Anakin? It's like
Why is
these
Gamora?
are why is Anakin? So it's like what is going on with Anakin? Who like what Anakin are we seeing? Is this a dead Anakin? Is this a Anakin from a different point in time? Like what am I looking at here?
Oh, or another theory that I could just be coming up with. I think this is going to play out just, but in live action. Like we're actually going to get like a lesson from it, but like with fighting and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're going to get a reenactment of Revenge of the Sith, which the rumors are there. But I think it's also going to be like kind of a reenactment of what we got in Rebels with Kanan teaching or Kanan basically teaching a lesson to Ezra one last time through Ahsoka, essentially, because he's part of the like Ahsoka says, he is part of the cosmic force now. Like he has the he can not necessarily change it, but he can help it along, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is Anakin going as himself, but like through the cosmic force being like, I'm going to teach you a lesson here.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I'm
yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but we're going to go through this adventure together. Like I'm going to act my Revenge of the Sith self essentially, but you're going to get a lesson through that of like why Ahsoka, like, it wasn't her fault. Like, it didn't help, but it's not her fault that Anakin is the way that he was. So, like, he's teaching her one final lesson of, like, this is not your fault. Like, we can have all these battles, we can relive everything, but it's to show her, like, no matter what you could have done, you could have been at this point in time. You could have been Obi-Wan in that situation, right? Like, there's nothing you could have done to save me. Even
Mhm.
Obi-Wan couldn't even Obi-Wan couldn't save Anakin. Like, we see in the Obi-Wan show how devastated Obi-Wan is still about it. Like
I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it.
like right, like, there's nothing to change Order 66. There's nothing that could have happened. Like, that's just how this works. Like, we can always make theories and what ifs about it, right? But like
Mhm.
for a Destiny sort of story, that is Ahsoka's story. It's she didn't help the situation. She walked away from Anakin. Let's be honest. Like she did walk away from the order. She walked away from Anakin. It didn't help that he that she wasn't there when he needed him the most.
Mhm.
Even though she came back for to help with Maul and all that. Like,
Mhm.
but she still wasn't considered a Jedi. She still wasn't fairly close necessarily with Anakin. Like,
Mhm.
but no matter what happened, I think that's what we're gonna see is Anakin's gonna teach her one last lesson of you could have been right where Obi-Wan was standing. It wouldn't have changed the outcome.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Like, yes, I think we will see Anakin give her one last lesson of destiny. What I can't wrap my head around still is why he has his dadgum lightsaber, why he looks like the Anakin we see in Revenge of the Sith, who's about to turn to the dark side. Yeah, I don't know. I
I mean, once again, you could just say storytelling and plot armor and all that, and just be like, well, it's the cosmic force. He can show up however he wants. And he's. I mean, he is his
well,
young.
that's boring.
He, I know, but he is his younger self. So like,
I know, but
cosmic.
yes, but he was also his younger self at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. So like, well, and that was the last time we saw him as a true light side person. So it made sense, and George made the decision to go back on change that. Like it
But
wasn't
his
always.
robes
Yeah.
were in the traditional. Like I'm saying, I guess what I'm wanting to happen
Is it Vader
is
or is it actually Anakin? Is that what
well,
we're?
yes, like what Anakin am I looking at here? What I'm wanting it to be is I'm wanting this place to be a place where Jedi who have gone into the cosmic force, they go. And what I'm looking at in the world between worlds, like when I see Anakin, I want that to be the Anakin that manifests into a force ghost. And so I'm trying to plug that puzzle piece of what I see in the world between worlds into the puzzle piece of the Anakin that I see at the end of Return of the Jedi. That's
Yeah.
what I want it to be, and that's what's throwing me off.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I want to. I need to. I'm going to do a video about it. I feel like I can't flesh out all my thoughts on here right now because I need to do my video and like do more
Yeah.
thinking and more research. And so maybe we'll have to do another stream sometime in the next couple days before we go into our predictions for episode 5. Yeah, episode 5.
Mhm.
But Kathleen here says maybe Anakin saw a different future version of Ahsoka in the world between worlds. That's true. Maybe he knows Ahsoka will live, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that I was actually going to have to teach you one last lesson before you go and do this, whatever." So that's possible. Follows up and says the Vader's theme is what's throwing everyone off. Yes, that is what's
Yes.
confusing. I think it's deliberate. I want to say I just want to chalk it up to the fact that it's just Dave and everyone trying to throw us off and like, oh, this is not going to go the way you think, but it'll probably end up just being fine. I mean, we know Anakin, a large piece of Anakin's character is Vader, so it would make sense in a way for Vader to have that theme and just be like, remind the audience, like, yes, you are looking at the good Anakin, but just remember, Anakin does turn into a monster. But I mean, everyone should kind of know that. So Kathleen says it's throwing everyone off. Tony says, or it's just scaring us all. Yes.
Yeah.
Throw us off like the Inquisitor did. Yeah. I mean, I think it literally just could be throwing everybody off, but I don't know. We'll see. All right. Let's do a I Love Democracy segment really quick. And Tony, you're senator of the channel. You got the custom emojis. Throw some Palpatine into the chat. Gangster Palpatine.
I love democracy. I love the Republic.
So in this segment of I Love Democracy, again, I was late getting the poll out on my channel, but 88% of the senators who voted on the channel gave episode 4 5 stars. So if I give a round of applause, if I could do a round of applause, I would give a round of applause for this episode because 88% of senators did give this episode 5 stars and 12% of senators gave it 4 stars. And so that would give us our 100% total right there. So overall, I would say, based off of what I'm seeing on Twitter and everything, this episode is well loved amongst Star Wars fans. So,
Yep, and it's rightly so because not that I want to gush over it anymore because I really do, but I'm just going to here that the Anakin and Ahsoka scene was done as perfectly as I thought it was. Like it could have been. Like the thought that I had in my head basically was that how the mannerisms, everything, like however what they shot was so perfect that like Dave understands how the fans want Ahsoka to be. They understand how Anakin is supposed to be. And it's a glorious thing. Also, did anyone catch that when Anakin says hi Snips, like Ahsoka reaches up for her head, like she's feeling like she's having a flashback to Clone Wars season 7.
mm-hmm. She's like,
yeah, she.
mm-hmm.
It's just once again, Dave does it well, and I got to give him credit. He's really good.
Hello, Snips. Yeah. Makes you just want to tear up a little bit.
It does.
Genius.
Hey, Sky Guy.
Genius. Yeah. Well, now we just got to get Sky Guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, love it, love it, love it. Before we head off tonight, want to leave you with a word of encouragement as always. Today's scripture reading comes from Romans chapter 15. May the God of endurance and encouragement grant you to live in such harmony with one another in accord with Christ Jesus. That's Romans 15:5. Thank you all for being here. If you want to continue the conversation or talk about anything, reach out over Discord, Twitter, however you want to get in contact with me. Would love to keep talking Star Wars or anything with you all. We'll be back next week, maybe sooner than that. Just be on the lookout on the channel to see if we go live. I try to put it in the Discord as well if we're able to go live a little bit sooner, but we'll go live probably on Monday of next week, maybe Tuesday. I don't know. I'll have to get some feedback. I don't know if the Tuesday worked better or the Monday, but we'll see. Either way, I'm going to try to get some videos out this week as well. So there should be Star Wars Democracy content coming your way over the next couple of days leading up to episode 5. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and motion to adjourn the stream.
Yep.
May the Force be with you all always.